Hello guys, welcome to session 5. In last session we have discussed about the self-pollination and we also discussed about the adaptation in the self-pollination pollinating flowers. So in this session we're going to focusing on the cross-pollination. Yes, already we know that in pollination there are two types. One is self-pollination and one is it is a cross-pollinations. Okay. So cross-pollination we also calling as allogamy. Cross-pollination we also calling as allogamy. So now what is the meaning of cross-pollination? Cross-pollination means yes, it is a transfer of pollen grains from anthers of one flower to stigma of another flower is called allogamy or cross pollinations. Okay, so cross pollen means it is a transfer of pollen grains from one flower to other flower. Yes, that is what we are calling as cross pollination or allogamy. So there are two types in cross pollination. One is xenogamy and one is it is a hybridism or hybridization. Okay, now we'll focus on xenogamy. Yes, it is a type of cross pollination. It is a type of cross pollination where the transfer of pollen grains within the same species is called xenogamy. Yes, we know that cross pollination it is a transfer of pollen grains from one flower to other flower, but it is the same species, not different species. So that is what we are calling as a xenogamy. Next one, it is a hybridism. So nothing but, so here a transfer of pollen grains in different species. Okay, so here the transfer of pollen grains from one flower to other flower, but it is not same species, it is a different species. That is what we are calling as hybridism. In this slide, we are going to discussing about the outbreeding devices or contrivances for cross-pollinations. Okay, so as we know that majority of the plants are offers cross-pollinations. To offer cross-pollination, they have to bring some adaptation or they have to brought some skills to favor the cross-pollination, and that is what we are calling as a contrivances. Okay. Now what are adaptations or what are the skills are developed by the plant to offer the cross pollination, that is going to discussing here. So first one is it is a dicliny or we also calling as unisexuality. Yes, we know that some of the plants are unisexual, means they are bearing only male flower or it may bearing the female flowers, or other the gamete will be present on the different plants. So that is what we are calling as a unisexuality or dicliny. Suppose if the male flower is present on other plant and if the female is present on the other plant, means they have to be must and good should be go for the cross pollination. We cannot find the self pollination in such kind of plants. So that is what we are calling as a dicliny. Yes, so dicliny means the both male and females are found in the different plants. Okay, if both are found in different plant, means they have to must and should go for the cross pollinations. Okay, next one, self sterility. Okay, so self sterility means in some plants a flower cannot be fertilized. In some plants a flower cannot be fertilized by pollen of the same plant. Okay, suppose if the flower is bisexual means it's having the both male and females are present in the same flower. Here the whatever pollen grains are transferred to the same stigma, it is not accepted. Here the fertilization will be not happens because of it may be the due to the genetic reasons. Because of genetic reasons is yes, it is not accepting the same pollen grains within the same flowers because of genetic reasons. So means it must should be they have to go for the cross pollination. Okay, next one, dichogamy. Okay, so dichogamy means yes, so if the flower is bisexual, If the flower is bisexual means it having the both male and female gametes. So both will be matured at different times. Yes, both will be means stamens and the carpels, they will go, both will be mature at different times. Okay, so and this thing will be avoiding the self pollination, and the flower must and should be go for the, or the plant should be must and go for the cross pollinations. Okay, suppose out of these two, stamens and carpels, okay, if stamens are first mature, if the stamens are mature earlier to carpels, that is what we are calling as a protandrous. Suppose if the stamens are mature first before the carpels, that is what we are calling as a protandrous. Example in case of sunflowers. Suppose if the carpels are mature earlier than the stamens, that is what we are calling as a protogamy. Okay, so dichogamy means the maturation of the male and female will be the at different time. That is what we are calling as a dichogamy. Suppose if they both are mature at different time means they have to be must and they have to be go for, or they have to be offer the cross pollinations. Okay, next one is heterostele. Okay, so hetero means different, stele means, yes, as you know, it's a part of the carpel. Okay, so when a plant bears flowers with styles of different sizes. Okay, so here the styles will be in the different sizes. The stele will be in the different sizes. It may be short, it may be longer than the height of the stamens, right? So like this heterostele, somewhere it is going to be prevent the self pollination and it is going to be offer the cross pollination. Okay, so last one, that is a hercogamy. So here, so hercogamy means nothing but it is a barriers. Okay, yes, they consist of some physical barriers, and these physical barriers, they going to be prevent the self pollination in the bisexual flowers. That is what we are calling as hercogamy. Okay, so in case of bisexual flowers, so they are not going to allow for the self pollination because they have some barriers between the stamens and carpels or stigma, and these barriers going to be, okay, this barrier they are going to be avoid the self pollination, and then that flower or that plant, they must and should go for the cross pollination. This is what we are calling as a hercogamy. Example in case of calotropis and orchid. Yes, we know that. So cross pollination. Yes, cross pollination is a transfer of pollen grains from one flowers to other flower. That is what we are calling as cross pollinations. Okay, the cross pollinations, it's themselves cannot move from the one flowers to other flowers. As we know that the pollen grains cannot move from the one flowers to other flowers. It requires some help, or it requires some external agent to achieve the pollinations. Okay, without any help, the pollen grains are not transferred from the one flower to other flowers. Okay, so especially in cross pollination, if the we are saying cross pollination, it should be transferred from the one flowers to other flowers, and it is a themselves, it cannot be moved from one place to other place, and it must and should require the agents. Okay, so these agents are groups into two types. One is it is a biotic agents, and one is it is a abiotic agents, or we call it as factors. Okay, now what are the biotic factors which influence the, or which helps in the cross pollinations? Okay, so such as like animals, okay, like insects, birds, bats, snails, etc. These are the animals which are help in the transfer of pollen grains. Okay, so this transferring method or the things agents we are calling as a biotic agents. Next one is abiotic agents. So here in case of abiotic factors, and the majorly two agents are involved. One is it is a wind and water. Okay. Majority of the plants depends on the biotic agents. Majority of the plants depends on the biotic agent for pollination. Only in small proportion. Only in small proportion. Some plants they are depends on the or they are uses the abiotic agents for pollinations. Okay. So in abiotic pollination, there is a wastage of pollen grains, or there are chances of wastage of pollen as a pollen in coming in contact with the stigma. Okay, it is a matter of chance. Here that there is a chance, taking the chances, right? So hence the plants depends on wind and water for pollination. Especially the plants which are depends on the wind and water, they are producing the number of pollen grains, yes, to avoid the wastage. Here the number will be the more abundant to compensate the uncertainty. Okay, so in abiotic factors we know that there are mainly two things. One is the involvement of wind and one is it is a water. Okay, so in next coming slide we are going to discussing about wind pollination and water pollinations. Yes, in last slide we discussed about the agents which are help in the cross pollination. So there are two agents. One is it is a biotic and one is it is a abiotic factors. Okay. So in abiotic factors there are two things. One is it is done by the wind and one it is by the help of water. Okay. If the pollen grains are transferred by the if the pollen grains are transferred by the help of wind, that is what calling as a wind pollination. Yes, also calling as a anemophily. If suppose it is carried by the water, that is what calling as a hydrophily. Okay. So in this slide we will focus on the wind pollination. So here the plants which are pollinated by the agency of wind are called anemophilous and the phenomena is called anemophily. Yes, as you know, here the transfer of pollen grains by the help of wind, that is what calling as a wind pollination or anemophilous, right? So now focus on the characteristics, right? So first one, it is the flowers are small and inconspicuous. The flowers are small and inconspicuous. Now what is the meaning of inconspicuous? Means here the pollen grains are not clearly visible. Here the pollen grains are not clearly visible and they are not attracting ones. They are not attracting ones. Okay, we can observe in case of diagrams, right? So here the pollen grains are dispersing. Yes. So here the pollen grains are dispersing by the help of wind. Okay. Next point, they are not scented and they do not produce nectars. Yes, the flowers which are favoring the wind pollination, yes, they are not, those flowers they are not scented and they do not produce the nectars. Yes, if it is depends on the wind, so those kind of flowers they are not producing the fragrance or they are not producing the nectars. If they are not producing nectar and they are not producing fragrance, means they will not attract the any insects for the cross pollination. So they have to be must go for the wind pollinations. Next point, the calyx and corolla are highly reduced or absent. Okay, in case of the flowers which are going for the wind pollination, there yes the calyx and corolla may be absent or it may be highly reduced. Okay, if suppose the calyx and corolla is highly reduced or absent and those kind of flowers are not bright in colors or they may lack the bright colors and they are not showy. If they having the corolla means they are become the showy. So here the corolla may be reduced or may be absent, because of that they are in bright colors and they are not showy. Okay. Next point, the plant or the flowers which offering for the wind pollination, they often shows well exposed long stamens. Yes, in some plants they are showing the long elongated stamens, means easily dispersed by the wind currents. Okay, suppose if they are having the short stamens, means it is difficult to disperse the pollen grains. Okay, to avoid that they are developing the elongated stamens so they can easily disperse by the wind currents. Okay, next one, the pollen grains are produced in abundance. Here the pollen grains are produced in the large quantity. Here they are produced in large quantity to avoid the wastage. Okay, last point, the pollen grains are very small. Yes, here the pollen grains are very small and they are very light. Why they are very light means easily they can be dispersed. Yes, by the wind current. If they are heavy means they will get settled somewhere down. To avoid that they are light. Okay, they are smooth and dry. They are non-sticky. They are smooth and they are powdery, easy for disposal by the wind, and they are non-sticky. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the plant which are favoring the wind pollinations. Okay, yes, in this slide we are going to discussing about hydrophily. So hydrophily means, yes, transfer of pollen grains by the help of water is called hydrophily. Okay, so hydrophily, it is a quite rare in flowering plants. Hydrophily is a quite raring in the flowering plants, but most of the monocotyledons they depends on the water for the pollinations. Okay, so in case of lowering plants, lowering plants like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, here they are depends on the water. So here the water will be transporting the male gametes. Okay, in case of water plants like, in case of angiospermic water plants like Vallisneria, Hydrilla, zostera, okay, they will shows the hydrophilia, or they will offer the water pollination. Okay, so we have to keep in mind that not all aquatic plants use water for pollination. In majority of the aquatic plants such as water hyacinth and water lily, here the flowers will be emerge above. In case of hyacinth and lily, the flowers will be emerge above the level of water. Here the pollination is done by the insect or wind, as it is found in case of land plants. Okay, yes, as you know that not all aquatic plants are showing the hydrophily. Okay, so some plants like hyacinth and water, here the flowers will be coming out of the water above the water level, and the pollination it is done by the help of, it may be done by wind or it may be done by the insects. Okay, so both wind and water pollinated flowers are not very colorful. Both wind and water pollinated flowers are not very colorful and do not produce the nectars. Okay. In last slide we discuss about hydrophily. Yes, we know that hydrophily means it's a type of cross pollination where the transfer of pollen grains to stigma by the help of water is called hydrophily. In this slide we are going to discussing about the hydrophily process by taking the two plant examples. One is Vallisneria and one is in the sea grasses. Vallisneria, it will shows the epihydrophily. Vallisneria shows epihydrophily. Now what is the meaning of epihydrophily? Means epi means above, hydrophily means we know that it is a transfer of pollen grains. Okay, So here the transfer of pollen grains will be taking on the surface of the water, that is we are calling as a epihydrophily. Okay, we can observe in this diagram. Okay, it is a diagram of Vallisneria. We can find both male and female plants. Okay, so female plants, they are consist of female flowers with elongated stalk. Female flower is, it is a elongated stalk, and it is, we can found inside this, it is a highly coil. When it is matured, so it is become elongated and come to the surface of water. So in male, they are producing the pollen grains. The males are producing the pollen grains inside the water, and these pollen grains, it will float and comes to the surface of the water. It will come to the surface of water. Okay. Yes, by the passive process of water current, some of the pollen grains, it will go and reach to the female one, and it will transfer the pollen grains to the, yes, the stigma of the female. After receiving the pollen grains, this female flower, it is again go back to the inside the water by making the coiling. The long elongated stalk is again go for the coiling, and the flowering goes down. Okay, so this kind of process we can find in the Vallisneria, and this we are calling as a epihydrophily. Okay, next one is, it is a hypohydrophyly. Hypo means below the water surface. Okay, the entire process, the transfer of pollen grains, the whole process will be happens inside the water, that is we are calling as a hypohydrophyly. In case of seagrasses, the female flowers remain submerged in the water. In case of seagrasses, the female flowers remain submerged in the water, and pollen grass is inside the water. The pollen grains, yes, the pollen grains of such many species, here the pollen grains of such many species, they are elongated ribbon like structure, and these are carried by the, yes, passively inside the water. Yes, and some of them reach the stigma and achieve the pollinations. Okay, in case of Vallisneria, we can find the pollination happens above the water level. In case of seagrasses, it is happens inside the water. Okay, so most of the water-pollinated species, the pollen grains are protected from wetting. Most of the water-pollinated species, here the pollen grains are protected from the wetting by providing the mucilaginous covering to the pollen grains. Yes, here the pollen grains are covered by mucilaginous substances to avoid the wetting. Okay, so this is all about the hydrophily and hypohydrophily. So in this slide we mentioned homework. Okay, so there are different questions on this, especially on pollinations. Okay, so first question, so it is, Geitonogamy is genetically similar to autogamy, justify. Second question, name the two biotic and two abiotic agents that affects pollination in plants. Third question, what are cleistogamous flowers? Give an example. Fourth one, define chasmogamous flowers with suitable example. Fifth one, distinguish between Geitonogamy and Xenogamy. Write 4 characters of wind pollinated flowers and give 2 examples. Next question, what are outbreeding devices? Explain briefly various outbreeding devices in plants. Next question, write advantage and disadvantage of self-pollination. Next one, write the 4 characters of anemophily. What are adaptation found in self-pollinating flowers? And last question, it is briefly explain water pollination process in Vallisneria plant.